Hello, our lovely listeners. This is your sunshine, Ray Johnson, and here with me again, your wonderful co host that you love to listen to, our luxurious star, Lauren Green.
Hi, everybody. Happy Friday. The week seemed like so fast. Don't you notice that?
Oh my goodness. I mean, considering how I joked in the past, and you know this as well from me personally, Lauren, how sometimes my mind mentally is in the future. Sometimes it is kind of hard in the present to realize just how much time truly has passed, in all honesty. Oh my goodness. But yes, it is crazy that it's already Friday and that the month of July is nearing an end. I'm in denial of that, honestly.
I know, because at the beginning of the month, I remember my first thought was, we're now halfway through the year, which I don't really like because this has been such a spectacular year so far and I don't want it to be over. But to think that it's almost August now, it's like, didn't summer just start? Like, didn't I just drive home from Gainesville just yesterday for the summer?
Honestly, I feel you there. I mean, seems like only yesterday I was looking for my first job, and I've been doing it for a couple of months now, and that in itself just seems crazy. All the crazy characters I've met with golfers, and how literally on two occasions there was this, both of them were older gentlemen, which makes it even funnier. But one of them was like, hey, with your power washer that we use to clean the carts and everything, make sure they're nice and pristine for the next golfer that gets one. I was spraying it, and one of them noticed and walked over. He's like, hey, can you spray my towel so it's a little wet because it's how hot it is? I'm like, I mean, sure. So I walk over there with all the confidence in the world, knowing that it's going to blow away. But I do it anyways. And sure enough, it blows down the sidewalk a bit. And he's like, oh, like he was just so shocked. And then he picked it up, and then he held it with both of his hands far enough apart where the towel was hanging from them and I could spray it again. He's like, a little bit more. So I did at the bottom to make sure not to hit his hands with it, because water wouldn't hurt him, but it's pressurized, so I didn't want to take any risks. And then I sprayed a little bit, and he's like, thanks. And then the next week, the same thing happens with two different guys, but one guy was the one that wanted that to happen, but the friend was like, no, it'll blow away. And I go over there and I make sure not to press it too hard so it doesn't blow too far, but it blew far enough to make a point. And the friend was just looking at him like he's such an idiot. Oh,
Like, like, what do I have for a friend here?
yeah, it's like the Phineas and Ferb thing of like, if I had a nickel for every time it happened, I'd have two nickels. But it's weird it happened twice or something like that. I'm probably misquoting it, but it is so weird it happened twice. It's so funny. Just sometimes people can be characters in a work of art. And speaking of which, our actual topic for today is about masterpieces in the art world and the things that we appreciate about art, such as wondrous paintings and sculptures, and even the art of photography, which we're both quite familiar with in our fields of communication. But I figured that with the modernization of photography, even with its humble beginnings way back in the earlier part of the 20th century, how art has been such a fascination to us humans for quite some time with paintings and how realistic they can be with lighting. It's just incredible the talent people have. So I wanted to hand it over to Lauren for her to talk about art pieces that have really spoken to her in ways that, otherwise without looking at it, may not have shaped her into the person that she is. Who knows?
Well, thank you. And without further ado, let's get into it because I love art. I think I'm an okay artist. And that's why I have to say my favorite piece of art. Yeah, I might be a little biased, but I don't care. It's a painting that I actually painted 4 summers ago when I attended a painting class with my friend over the summer. And I was honestly nervous at first because I don't have much experience painting. I mean, okay, I did it as a kid for fun and I loved it, but I'm talking about masterpieces here. But you know what? I was remarkably impressed because we learned how to paint a field of sunflowers with the sky in the background, a grass and like different plants on the ground, and I was so just enamored of how it came out. I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I actually created that." So I loved it and I brought it to school that fall and I hung it up in my dorm room. My roommates liked it too. So that's my favorite masterpiece, of course. Yeah, I did it. But to get into other pieces of art I like in paintings, I really like an older art piece from the late 19th century. It was a portrait of Madame Virgin, Madame X. That's and it's I think it's in the Metro Museum in New York, and she was basically an American belle who got married to a French banker, lived in Paris, and I really loved the dress that she was wearing. It was like a long, elegant black dress. Sleeveless too, but it was so pretty, and I liked it because you traditionally wouldn't see women during that era dressed like that. You know, it might be considered controversial or scandalous. And as much as I loved the attire that women had back then, because I used to watch the show Little House on the Prairie when I was a kid. So yes, I was addicted to it. Addicted. I loved it so much. Just being able to see how life was during that time and, how people went about their day to day functions and responsibilities. I thought it was intriguing. But you normally would see women dressed in long sleeve clothing, like the long skirts were floor length and long sleeve shirts and dresses. So to see the outfit that of the woman in the painting, I really liked it. And I liked her facial expression, even though she wasn't looking directly into the camera. Like I could just tell that her face just reflected confidence and style and a little sass, which I liked. Like, oh, look at me, I'm the star in this scene. So that's one of my favorite paintings.
Wow, that's wonderful. And I also love how you talked about how this particular piece that you gravitated towards and admire the artistry of, how it also represented women in such a forward moving way with the dress and the expression. Because most people during that day, you're correct, have very much covered skin with their clothes from the sleeves and how the ankles would be covered with how long the skirt was, stuff like that. And also, they most of the time would have a neutral kind of blank expression of just like a regular posing picture kind of thing, where you didn't really see much emotion behind the expression. So to see basically the opposite of that, where it's very confident woman displaying that with the sassiness, as you say, and wearing a outfit that exudes that as well. And that just is really cool because that's actually something that in one of the first art pieces I ever saw, funnily enough, was not in person or like seen at a traditional art gallery. It was actually on my mom's computer screen background as a kid. She loved The Night Watchman so much. It's just an astounding photo. Just the realistic lighting, the poses, the power poses of these men conversing and talking about switching night shifts, I suppose, hence the name. Don't quite know. I'm sure I could look up the history of it later, but just it's remarkable how it's one of those pictures I feel that you look at it and you immediately think, oh, if this was in the Night Museum, they would come to life. Like it's just so so realistic. It's insane. And it made me think, wow, there's someone talented enough to paint people in such a way where, if you were to see it, the life size replica version of it, you'd think that that person would just start moving in the painting. It's just incredible. Other than my mom actually being a pretty good artist herself, and she's actually gotten back into it again recently, which makes me so happy because she's so talented in it. She drew in high school, which is crazy to me, drawing of herself on a balcony, And at the bottom of the steps is the Romeo, and she's, referring to herself as the Juliet, looking down on him, like serenading her. And you just see the back of him with his arm up, but it's just so cute and well done. And she's like, it's not even finished. I'm thinking, wow, I could only imagine if in your eyes it was completely finished. That's crazy. So I always admire people that can draw people well. I kind of myself tend to stick to caricatures and nature and cutesy things. So I've always admired my mom and other artists, like the artist of the Night Watchman. It's just always astounding to me. And speaking of realistic, I know that we're also going to talk about sculptures, so a quick mention for me is that Dave and I were recently blessed with the opportunity to go to DC last month, as I mentioned in the previous podcast. And one of the things that we did was go to museums when we were attending lectures and things for that program. One of the places we went to had like gorgeous art all over the place. And the statue that really spoke to me was just like the neck and head of this woman on a pedestal thing for them to display it, and had a veil over her, and the whole entire thing was in marble, even the veil itself, but it had such movement and looked so realistic. I'm thinking, how in the world did someone convey the fragility of a veil over a woman in their face with the same material? It was just incredible, incredibly well done. I still picture that sometimes throughout the day, no matter what day it is, just randomly thinking, wow, how in the world did that person craft that? It's just insane. And just the different mediums, like with paint, whether it's oil or acrylic, whatever, or as just mentioned with marble for sculpture, for my particular example, it's just incredible the craftsmanship that God can bless people with. So I'll let you speak to statues and statuettes as well.
Yeah, let's and I agree with you. Like sometimes you look at paintings or sculptures and you're just you wonder like, wow, how did they do that? Because it's so, it's just so moving when you see it. And I would say my favorite sculpture that I saw was last year when I was in New York for the first time, and my friend and I went to the Met Museum in the city. And I think the one sculpture that really captivated me the most was a sculpture of a virgin mother holding her baby, and it's supposed to represent the virgin. I know, it was so sweet. Then we saw a real baby afterwards, like I think 5 minutes later, and she was so cute.
The timing, I can't.
I know, I can't either. Like, yes, every time. Oh, anyone who knows me knows that I love one thing I love more than dogs are, well, do I love them more than dogs? Yeah, okay. I have to say that I do because I have to say I love people more than animals. Yes, I love babies. Crazy about them. Always have been. And yeah, anyways, the sculpture represented the Virgin Mary and Jesus and in the Bible. And I remember when we were just looking at the sculpture, we just said, we were just commenting on how the baby was staring up at the mother. And I just thought of how wonderful that must feel. Yeah, because I think when you first become a mom, which it hasn't happened yet, but I look forward to when it does, because I think the second that child is first like placed in your arms, they say your life changes forever, and it does. And you look at that sweet innocent face and you think, I I made this. This is, and you talk about a masterpiece. That is a masterpiece that only God can create. And I don't know if there's any better feeling than that. Of course, I can't relate just yet, and I don't want to right now. I still can't take care of myself just yet. I'll get there soon, but I really liked it. I really liked how it really showed the close bond between a mother and child, because that's the most powerful bond in the world.
Oh, that's so true. And I love how many emotions that something that on the surface may seem simple, like a mother and child, but the layers of depth of it being, Mary and Jesus and relating to parenthood and the simple fact that it's a tender moment and means so much for history because of it being Jesus and Mary is remarkable. And you're right. I imagine also when I become a mother, and like you again, hope not anytime soon. um, but Yeah, for with the right timing and everything, I know for a fact that it'll be one of the most wonderful blessings of life. And I also try to think with a magnificent piece like that, also with what you were saying along with me of, how do they do this? I also wonder when crafting something that means so much, like representing the mother of the Son of God, just thinking that artist mindset of, man, I'm crafting something so significant to the history of the world. I wonder if at any point they felt kind of imposter syndrome of like, I'm the one that's displaying the representation of this, that kind of thing. Because I have a feeling if I were to be an artist with that particular set of skills or talent, I'd be like, man, I'm not sure if I should be the one doing this because, it's representing Jesus. like, it's just things like that always astound me, especially when it comes to the patience of doing that too. I myself have the tendency to do quicker drawings and stuff that I can easily do in a day or within like 30 minutes or an hour, even depending on the simplicity of it. So I can only imagine back then with all these skilled artisans of craft with these paintings and sculptures, like, geez, how do they have the patience to just work on something for an hour or two and it seemed like barely any progress is made, but they've made chips and digs at just the right places and then come back tomorrow and be like, okay, in the same process. And oh my goodness, I could only imagine. There's no way I could. It makes it that much more impressive to me, honestly.
Me too. Like, I think I would probably need at least 20 years of training, or maybe not 20, maybe at least 10. But yeah, I see what you're saying. But I think the finished product is so worth it in the end because when you see that, it's just so sentimental. And like you said, I can't wait to experience that for the first time too, when the time is right. But the first time that child looks up at me, I don't think they'll I won't be able to put them down for hours because I'm just gonna like just want to stare at them and just want to kiss them over and over again.
It's like I get you wanting to visit, but I mean, back off a bit. Give me a day or two. I just want to stare at this thing.
Yes, yes, it's my it's yeah, it's mine. I created it.
Oh, goodness gracious.
A healthy, beautiful child is the best piece of art that a mother can create. So when you really think about it, I think mothers are artists too.
Hey, there is a lot of truth to that. Good point.
Hmm. Yes.
It is just remarkable, kind of derailing a bit, but I don't care. To just think with what you brought up, this statue being such an impact, seeing Mother Mary and Jesus and everything, all that represents, and just the overall fact of an artist being a creator of something, and thinking about the ultimate creator of just it really is more mind boggling than we give it credit for, just how many possibilities that there are. The endless combinations of, red hair, blue eyes, blonde, brunette, brown eyes, hazel, whatnot. And it's just insanely incredible to just think that he knows all ahead of time of the exact combinations that are going to line up to create who you currently are. It's just insane to me. And actually, it's really funny that you bring up mothers and being the ultimate like uh, conduit of showing God's masterpiece of creating a child because my mom told me this a while ago, but also reminded me recently that when she was in high school, she actually prayed that I would be born and said, yeah, when I get married someday, and she married dad when she was in her 30s. So I'm not implying that this happened in high school, just that she prayed about it. Just that she prayed I would exist. She said that I want a girl that has brown hair and blue eyes and I'm going to name her Rachel. And here I am. And the fact that she knew the name, that early enough in her life before even seeing me kind of thing because some people wait until the baby's born kind of like I do with stuffed animals. Like when I see them, then I'm like, okay, that's the name for you. But it's just kind of cool that that's something that came to fruition. That actually also makes me wonder too. I know we've only brought up a few uh, examples of art pieces and stuff, but just with artists in general, I kind of wonder sometimes if some of the artistical pieces that have been made in life have been like divine dreams and stuff. Because you also know how, with the whole story of Joseph and the many coat of colors, with how he had his dreams of how he'd become in a rich and powerful position in kind of these metaphorical ways of the wheat and the stars and stuff. Kind of wonder if there's been dreams that artists have had that God's been like, hey, maybe you should paint something like this, you know? Just kind of makes me curious.
Yeah, I feel like there is because sometimes they say that you will develop an inspiration for a piece of art or even music at the time when you least expect it. So, so you're right. Sometimes they could be sleeping and it just comes to them in a dream and they think, you know what, this could be a really inspiring, really mesmerizing piece. Why don't I work on it? And I think that's when you're most driven because you can already see the finished product in your head, and at that point you're just in the process of trying to get it done, but not like rushing through it because you want to make sure that it's done right.
That's so true. I mean, all you pretty much have to do is make sure you have the skill set to accomplish that, but you're right. It's a lot more motivating to kind of know a result or at least an inspirational direction of a piece like that, whether it's painting or sculpting or whatnot. And there's even many more other art forms, of course, like pottery and things like that, but it's a lot easier to visualize paintings and sculptures in the sense of um, the obvious motivation of emotion that you can be convicted of when seeing it. People can replicate something to an exactness is pretty incredible too. I think it probably for me that would go back to being impatient, but the fact that someone can replicate a piece of what they'd originally done another time exactly the same is just as incredible to me. I'm curious if you've seen anything like that. There was an art piece that was done exactly the same.
Not that I can think of, because most art pieces I've seen have all been like the original form. But I see what you're saying though, and I've seen sometimes people might attempt to emulate another artist's work, and that's all well and good too because they just feel really inspired by it. So I'm all for it, and I like that because it exposes you to a different possibility of how the story being conveyed can be featured.
Yeah, and it gets passed down through different generations, so that style of art is never truly lost if people try to replicate it, like you're saying. That's a good point. And also, with what you're saying about original artwork, too, I think that it's actually quite incredible that, unless you are emulating stuff like that there's just so many original ideas for art because you would think with the passage of time that there'd be a lot more repeats than there are, but the fact that there's just such a diversity of moments captured in history or kind of fanciful ideas in more kind of the abstract realm just as incredible to me, honestly, that there's no real limit to artistic ideas and it'll just keep coming.
They are because, whereas your vision might differ from the original painters, that's okay. I mean, feel free to express yourself however you feel is necessary. And we should encourage diversity in art because it exposes people to other options and a new way of thinking, especially as generations pass because the world continues to evolve and we have a different outlook on life as time goes on. So, it's okay to showcase that in art.
Yeah, it's so true. It's kind of like with food in the last episode, diversity of culture with cooking different foods. Like I found a new corn recipe that's basically my staple now. I never would have known about until researching it. And it's the same thing with art, you get glimpses into other people's cultures and what's significant to them and the fascination of all these things and open up your world of a perspective you wouldn't have known otherwise. And yeah, that should definitely be celebrated and put on a pedestal, if you will, because get it, art. Anyway, but I also think that with what you're saying too about just the appreciation of art and the way people see things, Also, kind of goes back a little bit to what I was saying about how there's endless possibilities to a moment, because with photography that we've been so familiar with in our majors and stuff, there could be 100 people. This is gonna be a crazy visual. Bear with me. Could be 100 people lined up on a hill looking at the same sunset, all with their different cameras and equipment, taking the same picture. But each and every one of those, whether it's a different angle, whether it's if they decide to do it in black and white or whatever, every single one of those 100 people could take a different photo of that same sunset. So the fact that even nature, with how things can seem like it goes in such a cycle, and kind of the guaranteed thing of, okay, this is going to happen at this time of day, most likely, and still able to catch something different than another person would do, is pretty incredible too. If you think about all the camera companies that are out there, whether they're huge big brands like Canon or Nikon or whatever, just how people see things differently, just like how these cameras can capture things differently, different exposure rates and whatnot, is pretty cool too. Some of my favorite photos to look at have been animals, running like a cheetah or something, and you can just see the motion in the background, the picture, and it's just captured perfectly. Or even like a little hummingbird on a little flower, just so cute. And also why I just, like Lauren had mentioned earlier, even though it's probably a bit more of a tie for me, depending on the day, not gonna lie, of me just loving animals. Uh, what you were saying about like babies and stuff, it's like up there between babies and animals of me freaking out over the cuteness. Because even in an anime or a cartoon, if I see an animal, I freak out, and David starts laughing at me because he's like, oh, there she goes again, freaking out over the cuteness of the animals. But yeah, I just love nature photography so much. Other than portraits and candid photos of people, like where you can tell they're not really trying and just natural moments that the camera happens to capture, kind of thing. Some of my favorite things I've seen have been animal pictures. So, what about you? What are some of your favorite photos, like landscape, portrait? What speaks to you?
Yes, I love landscape portraits of either a nice beach or a lake because I feel like it's so relaxing, and it makes you feel as if you're actually there in person, and you're really just immersed in what's going on around you. You're connected with nature, and I think that when I see portraits like that, it makes me really pause and reflect on how wonderful life really is. Like I feel like it's a great respite from all my problems that I might be going through at the time, or anything difficult in my life, because I think, you know what, this earth is so beautiful and we don't always take time to really recognize or appreciate that.
That is so true. Wow, very wise words there. You may not be a mom yet, but you have the wisdom of one.
Oh, I try.
But it's so interesting that you mentioned the beach actually, because while you're describing the tranquility and peace that photography, that there can be a sense of tranquility and peace that's brought on by it. Because there's actually been studies that have stated that the sound alone, if you were just playing on your phone, for example, and not necessarily in person having to be there, but of ocean waves crashing on the beach is one of the number one things that calms people down. And I believe that, honestly. Nature is just such a calming element about it. And even something like a simple breeze can calm me down. And I just think that it's so cool how literally, and you can comment about how annoying this pun is, but how nature can ground you. It's just so cool, like you said, that sometimes it'll take a photo that either you take or a friend of yours takes or something, or a painting or a sculpture that makes you realize, wow, the earth that God created is so cool and so much more wonderful and glorious and bigger than my problems. And it kind of just snaps you out of it, so to speak, of whatever circumstances you're dealing with going on around you, and kind of shatters that tunnel vision of just focusing on that and realizing, man, we live on a pretty cool planet right now.
We do, and it takes your mind off all the turmoil and all conflict that's happening in the world. And trust me, if you watch the news, then you know what I'm talking about. But we don't need to get into that.
Yeah, I don't watch it anymore. I'm just like, if it's really important and life altering to me, friends and family will tell me. That's at the point I'm at.
Yes, but from the beginning of time, God did give us a perfect world, but unfortunately, people dating back to Adam and Eve messed it up. And, it's been anything but that ever since.
Yeah, and it's funny because the nature of sin, that even if it wasn't Adam and Eve, it probably would be someone else, and just it would be inevitable, unfortunately. But it's technically not perfect anymore. There's still perfect elements of it that he left for us to enjoy, so we just need to make sure we appreciate it, whether it's through art or just staring at it and, you know, mentally capturing the image and feeling the breeze and hearing the birds chirp. And even if at first it sounds so silly, and if you're in a place where those things don't bring you peace right away because you're just so down in it, then over time you'll realize that actually you can respark that joy in things and truly start to see the world for how beautiful it is the more and more you try. Because just like with how persistent God is with wanting to be in your life, so is the beauty that He's created. And even though there's seasons and cycles of things, like winter comes and it's not always spring and not always with flowers, and my nose is thankful because pollen. Uh, the beauty's always still there and around us. So we hope that you enjoy this topic of art, and even if it may have been chaotic like a Pollock painting or something, we hope you enjoyed it anyway. And we love you guys, and we will see you guys next time. Bye!
Bye. Enjoy your weekends.